Our next speaker, we'll welcome him to the stage at this time. So we have Joseph Jaramillo, and he is presenting on behalf of his business, Native Natural. Native Natural. Are you ready, sir? Do you need help? Do you have a PowerPoint? No? Okay, so here he comes. Let's give him a big round of applause. Yay!
Yeah.
Hold your hand.
No, yeah. Let's see if this. Okay, I guess this is as ready as I'll ever be. So here goes. You know, when we're born, first thing that works is the mind and never stops, except when you get up to speak. I'm trying to collect myself now, so. But anyway, I'm happy to see you. I'm happy to be here. And I don't care if there's empty chairs. It's okay by me, but you're here. You're hearing my story. And everybody else will wish later that they were here. Okay, with that, let me introduce myself. As was mentioned, my name is Joseph Jaramillo. That's how you pronounce my last name. I'm from Isleta Pueblo, New Mexico. I've got a rather interesting story to share with you. I'm not talking on behalf of my Isleta tribe. I'm just going to share my experience on how I got started and became natural native. I'm known throughout the world. I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you that I get orders from Australia, Paris, United Kingdom. I could go on, but I'll get to that a little bit down in my presentation of how that happened. But right now, I just want to give you a little background. I was born in a family with 8 children, a mother and father. And we lived on a little farm away from the main group that, if you might know, that Pueblos, we have a history of living in a community setting, like apartments or such. But my father, back in 1930, when he married my mom, he said, we're going to live away from everybody, and we're going to build our house where his father had given him a piece of land to settle. And he was one of the first to move away from the community setting, and that's where I grew up. When I was born, we were already living there. He was already going strong with the farming operation because, like I said, there was 8 of us in the family. I was right in the middle. So I had 4 older brothers. And then I have 1 younger brother and 2 sisters. So I kind of in the center of the whole mix. So by the time I came along, I was ready to do anything to help the family. It was pretty well established. My father was farming, using horses. This was back in the 50s. And so when I got old enough to take on responsibility, he told me that, okay, today's the day I'm gonna give you your assignment. This is gonna be your task until I change it at some point. And I was excited, you know, I'm ready. I'm ready of jumping up and down. Yeah, give me something to do. And so, not that I didn't have anything to do before that, but anyway, I felt like I was finally released to do something responsible. So I was happy about that. But the assignment he gave me was to take care of the horses that he used to do his farming with. I would feed them, I would water them, take care of them, give them a rub down the best I could, since they were huge horses. I'd have to use a step to stand on, and I'm glad that they were very not wild type. You know, they're very easy to deal with, and we're happy to be rubbed down. So that's what I did. Every time at the end of the day, he'd come in, working hard in the fields. He'd just park his equipment, horses, at some point, and it was up to me to take him to the stalls and unharness them and take care of them from there. In the morning, I would do the same. But back in those days, we didn't have running water. We had to pump water. But as it was, there was a nearby ditch or creek, if you will, what had water running, so that's where I would take the horses to water them. And that was quite a distance, about maybe 500 yards away from the house. And I would stumble leading the horses, and I was afraid they might walk over me, but I managed to handle it. And that's the only way we could learn, you know, just get in there and do it. So as fortunate as it is, I survived that task, and on we went with our everyday lives. They grew vegetables. We grew our own vegetables. We had our own salad bar out in the fields, if you will. And everything we grew, we ate. Anything we weren't able to consume, we sold at a roadside stand. So I got to learn sales. My mother was good at sales. She taught me well. My father taught me the art of work, how important it is to do what you need to do. And my mother taught me the rest about basic bookkeeping, basic type of remembering what the prices are, and don't forget that you're supposed to put this there, here, there. So with that, I was able to pick up. By the time I was 12, I was kind of doing that type of work. And then next thing you know, my life changed because where I was living, keep in mind, I'm living on an Indian reservation. This is 1950 or so, maybe mid-50s. Order came down from, I guess, behind us here somewhere, D.C., through the BIA, that all children will be put into boarding schools. And there happened to be a boarding school right in Albuquerque. So it wasn't so bad. We didn't have to travel far. So that's when I had to leave the farm. And ended up in a boarding school for my 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 3 years. I came home in the summertime, but not long enough to really be of much help. I never was there for harvest, because harvest time we were already back in school. So I kind of missed that part, although my brothers were there to help my dad. Anyway, after boarding school, another move was made to get us out of the boarding school concept. So they said, well, they're going to bus us to the local public school, which was right there in Albuquerque. I got to live at home, but the bus had to transport us back and forth to a school about 15 miles away. So there went my high school days, traveling back and forth. I had limited time to play sports. I really loved to play sports, but because of the family type setting, I needed to help my dad at home, and I became very close to my dad, and I loved them both very much, and helped them as best I could. And then suddenly I'm out of high school, and so I had a choice to make, and they supported me in my choice. Somehow, some way I was able to qualify to go to college. I didn't know what college was, really. I never knew I was going to college. My brothers, 4 brothers, all joined a military. And that's what I thought I was going to do. I thought that was the way you're supposed to go. So, but as it turned out, something was watching me, I believe. And I ended up getting a scholarship to go to a 2-year college in Colorado, Fort Lewis College. So I went there. First year I flunked out. I didn't know what I was doing, mainly in math and English, where they were my worst subjects because I didn't know anything what they were trying to tell me. So I flunked out, but that didn't discourage me because I had good support. They said, don't worry, come back, we're going to enroll you in remedial classes. So I had to take 1 full trimester of no credit just to catch up. And later I find out that it's because my high school didn't prepare me well enough. I was hoping there'd be kids, young people sitting here to listen to this, because don't ever give up. There's always something that's going to pull you back up. So that's what I tell the young people that I've worked with, which I'm going to get to in a few minutes, and encourage them not to ever give up. Don't ever say, just because you're told, no, you can't do it, doesn't mean you can't. There's always another way out. So with that, I continued on. Needless to say, I made the honor roll the very first trimester after remedial classes. Oh, I was so happy about that. Everybody was happy about it. It even came out in the local paper. And so with that, I moved on. And I really fell in love with math. I didn't know math was so easy. Everybody laughs, no. But as it turned out, I just decided to take math every semester. I loved it so much. And I ended up with enough credits to have a major in mathematics, as well as the course that I wanted to major in, which was education. So it turned out having education degree plus a mathematics degree, and the door was wide open for me. So I decided to, well, I didn't decide, someone else decided for me. After I graduated from Northeastern Tahlequah, where I had to transfer because, like I said, it was a 2-year college at Fort Lewis, so I ended up to a 4-year institution. And since I was adamant about education, I ended up at Northeastern State, Tahlequah, Oklahoma. Brand new world for me, because remember, I'm from New Mexico. Here I am, middle of Cherokee country. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? As it turned out, they were very nice people. They invited me in. They accepted me, and they're just happy to know that I'm from New Mexico had come into their midst. And so I was happy. I made a lot of friends, and was able to finish at Tahlequah. Anyway, when I finished, I received a nice letter from Uncle Sam. I think you know where I'm leading to. You will report to such and such because you've just been drafted. Okay. But there's a nice ending to this story as well for me. I did join. I did go, and they accepted me into OCS, Officer Candidate School, and I wanted to be a pilot. So they said, okay, your paperwork all looks good, got good grades in math, but guess what? I didn't pass the physical. I didn't know I was colorblind. That shocked me. I didn't know I was colorblind. There's no way they would let me go beyond that point. So with that, I finished basic and then went on and put me into electronics, since I had an electronic background. So I learned how to install communication systems onto those Huey helicopters. they're on their way to the war in Vietnam. So that was my military experience up to that point. And I was happy. My brother was at that same time in Vietnam, so that supported my not having to go there because of some law that someone pulled out and says you don't have to because you have a brother there currently. And I later found out that some people that knew my dad knew all that, and my dad knew that they knew that two brothers were away from home, and so that's what saved me from having to go into the battlefield. At the time, I felt bad, but now I look back and I'm glad it happened. I'm sorry for all those people that didn't make it back, and I sometimes feel down about it, but I try to understand. Say a prayer for them and leave it at that. So anyway, let's move on to the next phase of my life, which is getting closer to the native natural. After I left that life, I was hired by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Office of Indian Education Programs. And since I had a teaching background, I ended up being hired at SIPI, Southwestern Indian Polytechnic Institute, of all places, located in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I knew something good was coming, because it took me back home instead of taking me somewhere else around the world. So I ended up at SIPI, which meant that I could live at home, commute to my job back and forth, which was about 15-mile, maybe 12-mile drive every day, one way. So with that, I started at SIPI. I was Dean of Student Services. So I had, my job was counseling department, residential halls, recreation, and those type of things. And I met all kinds of students from all over the country. Students came from native tribes that I'd never heard of before, but I was so happy to meet them and hear about who they were. That just gave plenty of time, one-on-one, whenever I could. I used to stand in front of them like I'm doing now to give orientation. And I used to give them what for and not do this, not do that, but don't worry about it because we all did it sometime, but just make sure you learn something if you do something wrong. So anyway, in case I never saw them again. But I used to always tell people, I don't care if just one person walks in for orientation, we're going to give them the full welcome. Some people used to say that, oh, we just have one person, let's do something else. Oh, no. One person is better than none. So that's the kind of life that I've gotten used to. I push that all the time. One person is just as important as a whole group of people sitting here. So I'm happy that you all are here, like I said before, and thank you for taking the time to listen to me. Okay, let's move on a little bit now. And in 1998, okay, I'm still working for SIPI at the time, but I found time to do some things for my tribe. Since I'm living at home, by this time I've already built my own house, and you might know that among Pueblos, we have our own architectural style. We build our homes, if you're going to make it, an authentic type structure using adobe or sod, which is another way of using adobe. You go to the riverbed, you cut out a rectangular block about 14 inches long, a foot wide, and you turn it over, and about 6 inches down from the grass surface, there's gravel, so it breaks off easy. From there up, it's all clay. And you set it out in the sun so that it can dry. And I guarantee you it hardens just as much as concrete block. And you've already got the grass on there so you can use it to let the mud lock it in when you put it one on top of the other. So that's the style of adobe houses. Now, modern day, they make adobes out of mud and other things that they mix in. They don't cut it out of the riverbed anymore. So they add ingredients. I don't know, not sure what they add, but it hardens like cement. So it's pretty strong to support any type of wall. But I'm not sure what materials go in it. I like the first method better because it's all natural. And after I built my house, I lived there, commute to Mississippi. Okay, and then I started getting involved with the community. I noticed in the 1980s that all our farmland was starting to go vacant. Nothing but weeds growing as you drove down the way across the reservation. Before that, when I was younger, almost every field was full of gardens, just beautiful, because there was, I guess, a lot of time for that. All the elders that used to do all that are now all gone. So here we are with a new generation of people coming in and really not having any direction. So that prompted me to start doing research, asking questions, and starting getting people from the community involved. So with that, I visited USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, their extension offices within the local area. As it turned out, there was an individual there that was just aching to find a way to get into talking to natives directly. He would announce it through different media, but there were hardly any responses. And I told him that, no, you have to get out there and actually talk face to face and let them know who you are, let them know what you look like, your style and everything, and that's how it starts. So he thought, oh, wow, that's great. I'm glad we met. So with his ideas and my ideas, we put it all together, and in 1998, we started Isleta Agri-Vision. That's the name that we chose. So with the help of USDA, with a little bit of funding, and me allowing to use a plot, we started our site to grow vegetables, to teach, to talk about what all the things that you can do with soil. And it just flourished. Not the first year, second year, but third year, oh, we just had to open more plots. We just kept expanding. And by 2000, we had more than we could deal with. I mean, people were excited. They were wanting to start their own plots, which was the whole idea. And we would give them all the things they needed, so they would start their own plots. And all the way into Albuquerque, even Albuquerque got involved after they heard about what we were doing. And they asked if kids that were in the juvenile detention center, if they could come down and participate. And we talked about it, and I said, sure, why not? Let's include them. So we did. And their graduation rate was so low that they were all wondering how in the world they're going to accomplish to give them some positive solutions. So when they came out there and they listened to our speakers, they visited with us, spent time with us for one whole summer. They all wanted to come back the following summer. And next thing we knew, they started to enroll at the local community colleges to learn more about what we started. And their graduation rates were starting to move up, and they eventually were able to move back into their regular high school to finish their credits. So it was a good, in a nutshell, a good positive solution or conclusion. So that part also really helped our effort, as well as other things that we were doing with younger kids. We had Head Start people involved all the way up to high school. And it was amazing. I have pictures, I have videos, but my computer went crazy on me about 2 weeks ago, and I just lost everything. And I'm hoping that I've got it at a shop somewhere where they're going to try to pull everything out so I can redo the tapes, or they say that I can. They should be able to save some of it, but I didn't have them in time for this presentation. But I hope that I'm displaying enough of a picture in your mind of what happened. And this is because of USDA, because of things that happened to me in my life, key things that kept me at home, kept me from going in harm's way, and then other people that saw what we were doing and they jumped in and helped out. So now let's move on to Native Natural. From this effort, we were able to produce, with the help of the local mills processing plant, which there is one at one of the pueblos at Santa Ana Pueblo. With their help, we were able to process our products, especially corn, immediately instead of waiting to ship it somewhere. And with that, we were able to come up with products that we could promote and start selling to start bringing in some funds, because all that money that we were enjoying all ended in 2004. So everything was started to go down, and I started seeing people walk away to move on to a different project because they knew that the end was near, and it was hard to do anything. So, but I feel good because there's some things that came out of it today. There's some young people that have already reached parent age. Now they've got gardens. They're teaching their kids about the art of gardening. The local school have gardens that they didn't have before, that they're using within the cafeteria, all the things that they grow. And those are the accomplishments. And I find it that I don't have no statistics as far as how many made it, but I just can safely say that if one made it, that was success. But I know more than one made it. So what I started doing then is I started looking in ways to bring money or funds in. That's where the Native Natural part comes in. I had several people that talked to me about how you can do this, do that, and I picked out the ones that I thought I could handle. So I liked the idea of packaging the cornmeal, the blue cornmeal. So that's what I've made as my main product, is blue corn. And I specialize in that because it has so many good ingredients, so many good nutritional value in it, that it's very valuable to have and to understand. So with that, I was able to come up with a value-added item of pancake mix and cornbread muffin mix. So I have those three now. I have the main cornmeal, I have the pancake mix, I have the cornbread muffin mix, which I package, and there you'll find them at my table. And it also, I started making parched corn, which is roasted corn mixed with sea salt, and it's like a snack. Can eat it like a snack. And also, you can throw it into your favorite stew for flavor and such. And along with that, a couple of products that complement the blue corn meals and such that you might make is the red chili powder and the anasazi beans. Red chili powder is definitely New Mexico because it was grown in New Mexico. New Mexico is beginning to get known for its famous chili, both red and green. So that's what you're getting. You're getting authentic New Mexico grown chili. I have extra hot, hot, and mild. But the only ones I bought with me was the hot and the mild, because last year when I was here, nobody wanted extra hot. So I figured, well, I'll just stay with hot and mild. So if you do want extra hot, just let me know. Give me your name, and I'll get back to you. But so I decided to package these items. And of course, in order to do business of that nature, you have to register a name, right? So that's where the name Native Natural came from. Native and natural because of the natural art of growing it, naturality of working with it. I could go into tell you how I got the name Native Natural, but I don't know if we have enough. Oh, okay. When I was at SIPI, like I was telling you earlier, I met a number of Native students. And I happened to meet one student that was there, and he was an older gentleman, just gotten out of the Army and was continuing his education. We became pretty good friends. And one day he came in and all excited and wanted me to see if I was interested in purchasing a chance to become a partner in some of his friends back home that had a business called Native Natural. And they were promoting water, bottled water. And I said, sure, I'm interested. And this was about 1995, before all this different water, bottled water concept took over the country. And I liked their idea. They were Sioux, from the Sioux tribe, and they had this concept of having bottled water, regular size, and they were putting a famous Native leader on the bottle with a story about his tribe and his accomplishments. But they were mostly from the northern tribe at this point. I liked that idea. I saw it immediately. This is going to be a seller. So I went ahead and did it. $5,000 they wanted to join up with them, so I did. Well, they sent me a certificate, proof that I was a part of their organization and was eligible to use the name Native Natural. So as it turned out, I was waiting for them to feed me more information, etc. And they were already bottling water. They were already producing it because they shipped me some samples. And then all of a sudden everything just died. I didn't hear from them. And one day I got a phone call telling me that from the third member of the group, there was 4 of us. The third member was also kind of like me, joined after the first 2 started it. They said, Joe, we've been hijacked, or we've been whatever the word he used. we've been fooled. He said that they just ran off with our money. There's no more native natural. Wow, what can I do? What can we do? As I'm trying to find that out too. So with that, and of course I'm busy with my career in SIPI, I don't have time to be running around to find out. So I just left it to the Lord. Said, God, help me with this. I got too much to do. I made a mistake. Forgive me. All those kind of things. So I just let it go. Well, 4 or 5 years later, I got word that both of them died. They passed away. I never met them. But here they are, they're gone. And I immediately checked to see if anyone was using native natural. At least I'll get that. So my $5,000 helped me trademark native natural. So here again, I'm saved. So, so anyway, so native natural was born 2006. By this time, I've already retired from education. 2004 is when I left, with 30 years of service with federal government. So here I am, open. The world is open once again for me. So at the same time, I get a call from someone saying that, hey, you ought to check out Intertribal Ag Council. They're based in Billings. They're looking for people like you. I said, uh-oh, what does that mean? More $5,000, I guess. But I called them anyway. And it turned out to be a legitimate program. And it's still active today. They're funded by USDA. And they help ranchers, they help businesses like mine in Indian country. So I got in touch with them. They sent me an application. I applied. They accepted me immediately and told me what I need to do. That's the reason why you'll see on my label, made by American Indians. That's required if you're going to be part of IAC. And it's a logo that to recognize that it's Indian made, American Indian made, since it was international as well program. So that's why you'll see that logo on there along with mine. And when I joined, I didn't realize how involved it was going to be. That's when I was able to travel internationally to promote native food products along with other businesses that had already joined up. So there were usually about 6 different businesses that would travel together. And that's when we would go out and either we would sit like we're sitting today and promote our products at an international food show, or we would put on a dinner, native foods dinner, American native food dinners. We did this in Japan. We did this in Paris. Oh, it went out so beautifully. It's just amazing how we were accepted and received, and everyone liked our products. But the only thing that stopped me from pushing more on this theme was because of the trades, the commerce. I can't think of the word, but when it comes to trade internationally, there's a lot of requirements that you have to meet, especially for food. And I didn't have all that. certified. You have to have documentation that you're certified, documentation that your food has been certified, plants or whatever it is that you're growing, all has to be properly certified. Well, I didn't have all that, so that's why I couldn't. So I still continued to travel. They wanted me to go because they wanted me to tell my story. So because of that, I didn't have any direct sales. Not that I couldn't, but I couldn't because of the tariffs, the embargo, and all those type of things that come into play. But I did sell products to individuals. As friends, we could ship each other items, but not in volume. We could send about maybe 25, 50 pounds at a time. So that's what I've done. So I've been limited when it comes to international sales. But nationally, I'm happy. I'm doing well. And I am so happy that everybody around me is happy. So that's my story. So I'm going to open it up for questions. I know you might probably have some questions, so I'll leave the last few minutes on questions. Was I that thorough? There's one.
What was boarding school like?
Boarding school. She's asking me what was boarding school like. I have to go back to that bad memory. Well, it was fun because it's like having a slumber overnight stay with your friends, you know. That part was great. But there were strict rules. You couldn't make any noise. You couldn't jump around. You can't do this. And so we had to be careful. No noise type sleepovers, I guess. But I always like to look at the positive side. It taught me kind of like what a parent might teach their child to I've lost for words. To be responsible. To be responsible and to know right from wrong, especially when there's someone like she's standing, when a matron or counselor is standing right there with their arms like she has. And I learned military, it was like military school, to be blunt. In junior high, we marched to school, we marched to the meal centers, we marched everywhere. And we had details. We had to clean certain areas of the place. We had assignments that we had to take care of. And for some reason, my assignments were always in the kitchen. I guess it was meant for food, I guess. Oh, I didn't realize at the time, but I guess I was heading towards food. But my assignment was in the kitchen. And it was fun because the girls were there preparing all the food, and I was the only guy in there, you know, having to deliver the food to them from storage and bring it up to them. And they used to always pick on me in a fun way. So I forgot all about the other bad stuff, you know, that we had to put up with. And the other thing, too, I had to learn how to do my own laundry. I had to learn how to iron my own clothes if we needed ironing. But there's some nice, fun stories from there, too, which we won't get into. But I hope that answers your question. But the school academics was good. I thought it was. There were good teachers there. They meant well. They taught us. It was up to us to take advantage of it. But when you're so big, you know, you don't want to. Who wants school? You know, That's kind of the attitude. But then when you saw someone like her standing there, then you make time to go to school. Otherwise, you'd be cleaning all night till midnight, and etc. That's what it was like. Thank you for that question.
Here you go.
Do you have a lot of do you have a lot of youth involvement with Native Natural? Or was that mostly with SIPI?
I do have involvement presently. I do use students for seasonal type work to take care of the corn, like right now. It needs to be weeded out. But once you weed it out, then it's pretty simple. The weeds don't come up as fast because we hardly ever get rain. We have to irrigate, but weeds don't seem to thrive with irrigation water for some reason, but corn does. But I do hire students to process the corn, because you have to shell it, you have to package it, you have to run it through a cleansing process, and so forth. So yes, I do.
Are there any other questions? You look like you have a question, sir. I'm messing with you, Stacy.
How much, like, annually do you estimate on your revenues?
Hopefully IRS is not in here. I bring in about 10,000 profit. Yeah. It's a small operation. It's nothing huge.
Are there any other questions? So he was like, his goal is to double that, so please go to the booth and buy something from him. No, just kidding. But thank you for your story, because in the Native community, I think we were just talking about this earlier, or he was talking about it. A lot of times you can hand out stuff, you can put your number out there, but it's really important. I think this is what the food systems and food sovereignty and the farming does. It kind of forces us to talk to one another, to interact with one another, and make those connections. Whether your students that you're hiring seasonally, you're connecting them. The project over there is with the young people, in Hawaii, and then the Bad River. We're going to hear from them next. But they have a really good story, and it's about relationships. And it's not just relationships with each other, but relationships for many of us to acknowledge that food from our homeland that we've been separated from for a long time, because maybe we got forced to go to boarding school. Maybe because our families were part of a relocation program that moved us to Chicago or Los Angeles or wherever else. Those are some of the towns I'm familiar with. And we have a couple of generations that are not connected to our homelands. So it brings us back, and it's a beautiful thing. And for me, it's a strengthening thing. It's a strengthening thing, and it's gonna make our kids stronger, and it's gonna help us for the future to be grounded in who we are and in what we do. And the folks that are here are willing to share that with you. So we're really happy to have this opportunity to do that. So we have a few minutes before our next presentation, so feel free to look at the information. We do have the Bad River folks from Food Sovereignty. They're from Wisconsin, the Anishinaabe people, so they'll be up here pretty soon. And they're real active with the young people in their communities. So thank you for coming and listening, and we'll be here tomorrow as well. 4 o'clock, I don't know if it's already started, wine tasting. Has a wine tasting started? So that'll be over right there where the coffee bar is. So take your ID out if you look young. If you're cursed with looking young, hey. Have a glass of wine provided by Twisted Cedar, is one of our featured businesses from the Cedar people, Utes in Utah. So we'll be back pretty soon with our next presentation. Thank you.